Just because something makes you feel good doesn't mean that it makes you feel better. Because a lot of times, man, we're so quick that to find those temporary band-aids or to find those temporary pieces of happiness, to find those temporary pieces of peace. And we think that it's going to make everything all better in our life. But something I need you to understand is literally in that quote that just because it makes you feel good for the moment, just because it may make you escape from that for a while, just because it takes that thing off your mind for a little bit, that doesn't mean that you
There's a
feel better.
will, there's a way.
Quite literally, Will Tidwell, a younger gentleman.
I wish I didn't have this big heart. People just do nothing but hurt me. Anybody can dream the dream. Anybody can have a goal, but see,
You're gonna be a neighborhood hero. You just keep shining, young king.
Hey, what's going on, man? This is Will Z Tidwell with SpeakUPZee. You're not tuned into the episode of SpeakUPZee the podcast. Let me double check and make sure this thing is on. Okay, it is on. Cool. What's going on, man? This is Will Z Tidwell with SpeakUPZee. You're not tuned into the episode of SpeakUPZee the podcast, man. As you can see, I'm on the move. I'm picking up my daughter from school, man. I have to make these videos whenever I get time these days. You know what I mean? So, um, man, super excited to be able to just make this content with you guys here today. And share just some new writings that I've been able to do, um, based off a recent conversation that I had actually with somebody that really it opened my eyes up when it comes to that topic of healing, of becoming whole again, of overcoming our traumas and our pain and our past. When it comes to that, and I wrote something about how sometimes we try to take shortcuts when it comes to our healing. Sometimes we look for temporary happiness and temporary um, peace and believe that it's healing. When in reality, we're just as miserable as we were before, if not worse. And so I want you to listen to what I'm saying here, and I hope it resonates with you. Listen to this. When it comes to healing, when it comes to feeling whole again, when it comes to feeling better, when it comes to getting back to the version of yourself that you used to be before the pain and before that thing that changed you, just because something makes you feel good doesn't mean that it makes you feel better. Because a lot of times, man, we're so quick that to find those temporary band-aids or to find those temporary pieces of happiness, to find those temporary pieces of peace. And we think that it's going to make everything all better in our life. But something I need you to understand is literally in that quote that just because it makes you feel good for the moment, just because it may make you escape from that for a while, just because it takes that thing off your mind for a little bit, that doesn't mean that you feel better. That doesn't mean that you've done the real hard work to face and deal and conquer the traumas and the pain and the things that you're dealing with in your life. That doesn't mean that you've done that. You've just given yourself a temporary blocker to forget about that pain for a while, to forget about that trauma for a while. And we do it every day. And it looks like so many different things in the forms of sex, in the form of flirting, in the form of drugs, in the form of alcohol, in the form of working out. Like there are so many different ways in which we do things to make ourselves feel better, to make ourselves feel whole again. But again, just because it makes you feel good doesn't mean that it makes you feel better. And it kind of resonates with our message from yesterday, where it talks about peace and happiness, that we search for this peace and this happiness and this wholeness and all of these different places and all these different things in our life, when in reality, the only place that we can really find it is with God himself. And that's the harsh reality of it. Is just because it makes you feel better doesn't mean it makes you, just because it makes you feel good doesn't mean it makes you feel better. That doesn't mean um that everything is okay in your life. That doesn't mean that you still don't have some hard, deep, and lonely work to do in order to get back to the version of yourself that you used to be, or to become the new version of yourself that you are now that you come out of that storm. And so I guess what I'm saying is that, and this is for me too, we can't go looking for temporary band-aids and temporary fix-its to cover up trauma that's going to last forever if we don't ever do anything about it. To cover up pain that's going to still linger within if we don't do anything about it. If first we're not even willing to admit to ourselves that we're hurting. If first we're not even willing to admit to ourselves that we're in pain. If we keep lying to ourselves and telling everybody we're all good and that nothing bothers us, that everything is all good, yeah, you may have numbed the pain for a little while, but eventually what's going to happen is that that pain is going to come back 10 times harder. You know what? And it makes me think of an example, man. This is one of my favorite shows, called Ballers with Dwayne the Rock Johnson. It has Denzel Washington's son in it, John David Washington, and a number of other talented actors, of course, right? And there was this stint in season one, I believe, or maybe season two, where The Rock was dealing with the aftermath of being a football player. And as you know, you may know, man, when you play a real sport like that, man, the pain that may come from after that, especially playing at the highest level, his body was going through it. And it got to the point where he was popping pills and drugs and Vicodin so much like it was Tic Tacs, just to make the pain go away for a little while, just to ease the pain off just long enough so he could function, just so he could get through his day. But the crazy thing is that as soon as that Vicodin wore off, as soon as that medicine went away, that same pain and those same aches and those same bruises would come back in his life 10 times harder, and it would make it so hard that he could barely focus. He could barely function in his life until he finally sat down with his doctor and had a tough conversation that scared the hell out of him and told him that he needed surgery and told him that they needed to go on the inside of him and needed to change some things, rearrange some things, and clean up some things so he could just get back to living his life and feeling better. And I think it's the same thing in our life, y'all. A lot of us are just like everybody in that situation I just talked about. We're dealing with some pain in our life. We're dealing with some things that have us in agony. But we think that these temporary band-aids that we put over it is going to make everything better until we realize that when that band-aid starts to peel, the pain that we thought we took care of, that past we thought we got rid of, that thing that we thought we could bury deep within and not ever have to face it ever again, all it does is come back 10 times harder to see us. And the crazy thing is, we're going to have to sit down with ourselves and have some tough conversations that we don't want to have, maybe with some people that we don't want to have them with. And we have to be real and say, we have to do some inside work. And when we do that work, it's going to clean up and repair some things in our life that we've been avoiding for so long. Because just because it makes you feel good doesn't mean that it makes you feel better.
Hey, what's up? This is Will Z Tidwell with SpeakUPZee. And I just want to take a quick second just to thank you for tuning in to this latest episode of SpeakUPZee, the podcast. And my only goal with this platform is to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you around all things life, business, and mental health, whether it's myself or me bringing on a special guest. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. We don't ask for any type of monetary gains or anything like that. The best thing you could do for us is just like and subscribe to the channel. Until next week, we'll see y'all later. Peace.